Welcome to Club E. Hi, I'm Rick Brimacombe of Brimacombe and Associates. I am your architect of business growth and will unlock your potential, amplifying the scale of your company. Today, we are talking about the Minneapolis industry update for hospitality and real estate. First, I want to thank our sponsors, Irish Titan, an e-commerce and web development firm, Highland Bank, a locally owned community bank, Romaine Berg, a digital marketing agency, Breakthrough Impact Group, CEO Business Leader Peer-to-Peer Group, Voyager U, training resources and a community for you to launch an independent career. You can also learn more in the courses section of clubby.com. And mentioned this last time, a Brimacombe Capital portfolio company called the Celtic Croft. They have all things tartan culture. Website is www.kilts-n-stuff.com. Celtic wear, kilts, jewelry, and home furnishings. And if you're an Outlander fan, the Celtic Croft is the only holder of Outlander tartans in the United States. Because it's the holidays and because you're a Club E listener, 15% off through December 22nd using the promo code Club E Holiday 15. Again, Club E Holiday 15 for the Kilts and Stuff website. All right, subscribe and like our Club E channel, allows us to let you know when we're going live. And also you can catch Club E on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and many others. With that, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Larry Abdo. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
And to learn more about Larry and the various businesses he's involved in, hit the website www.abdomarkethouse.com. Again, abdomarkethouse.com. And if you have questions for Larry and I today, you can put those into the comments field. All right, Larry, to kick things off, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, the firm, all the many things that you're involved with.
Well, not to bore anybody, but try to give you the quick update. My firm is called Abdo Market House, which is the name of my grandfather's grocery store in Northeast Minneapolis that he had in 1919. And we just kept that name. Tradition is, fairly significant in our family. So I just kept that name and used that as sort of a grocery store of different things that we're involved in as a family. Over the years, and I'd say from my sophomore year in college till today, I've been involved in startups, probably 25 startups, and probably another 5 or 6 acquisitions. And currently, as a family, we're enjoying our developments where we've done about 200 different developments around the country, plus hospitality, which is the Nicollet Island Inn and the ever popular and famous My Burger chain. And the other thing that we like about hospitality, if you can call it that, is being at the Minnesota State Fair with a brand called Big Fat Bacon and Gopher State Ice. So, those are the current things that we're doing from a civic involvement. My wife, Caryl, and I spend time at the University of Minnesota. We have started a couple of initiatives there. One, the Abdo Dinner Series, which we're proud of because we get entrepreneurial couples for dinner at the inn, and we talk about what it's like to be a entrepreneurial family and what that does to your marriage relationship. The other thing that we've done is we started an initiative at the U called Entrepreneur in Residence, where we're there periodically with others that make ourselves available for the students to ask questions about anything, money, law, accounting, whatever. So those have been enjoyable for us. It's close to home, and as a married couple, we like to do more and more of that together. That's kind of a quick thumbnail of it.
Yeah, talk a little bit beyond you and Caryl. Kind of let everybody know a little bit about the family and the different roles that they have in the various enterprises that you're involved in.
Well, we have 4 children and 4 in-laws, and all of our children are involved in the business. So the oldest is Mandy, obviously, and she has been involved in the state fair, from the beginning, because we've been there 50 years. And another restaurant that we had that we've since sold. But every day to day, she's involved in the marketing of our different brands. She's got a really strong English degree, so she's the one that likes to correct my spelling and my grammar all the time. Paul, who's the oldest son, is shoulder to shoulder with me in our development process for everything that we're currently doing. Plus, he has a side gig, essentially, of working for My Burger and doing a lot of their digital promotion. John Abdo is the CEO and president of My Burger. He's been that since '05, and we currently have 7 stores. So he's busy, and he's got his team that spends a lot of time in the stores and on the ground. And Corey Abdo, our youngest, is the general manager of the Nicollet Island Inn. And not only has he been really extremely helpful and additive for all of the bar and food stuff, but he's got a really good sense of customer service. So we're all involved in that, and we see each other daily, essentially. And my wife Caryl, who is the chief family officer, is in her office every day, and the kids are coming in and out, and she's mostly responsible for paying all of the bills and making sure that all the accounts are correct.
Then want to welcome back you again. So thank you. You've been a speaker at Clubby before, and for folks out there in our viewing and listening audience, you can go to the Clubby channel on YouTube to catch a couple of videos from Larry speaking on his own in the past, as well as a fun conversation that I had with Larry and Caryl, the two of them, which was not long before COVID hit. So maybe we'll use that as a springboard. We're going to talk about a variety of things today, but before we maybe dive into the meat of that, what's just a quick update on My Burger, because there's probably just a little bit more to talk about there. I know I've been going regularly during the lockdown, but maybe just give everybody a quick update on My Burger, and then we'll dive into our other topics.
We have 7 stores, as I mentioned earlier. All 7 of them are open. The first store is downtown, and that's open 5 days a week. The other stores are open 7 days a week until 9 o'clock at night. They're essentially from 10 in the morning until 9 at night. It is pickup and delivery only. I'd say over 50% is through the different order platforms, and the other is where people can order on an app and come and pick it up. We're at about 85% of volume pre-COVID, and we've been able to manage our expenses and our labor so that My Burger's got a really good track of profitability. And the reality is the hamburger is really good. And the other absolute reality is that in America, burgers aren't going away. This is not a trend. We've got a great burger and great fries. America's been eating them since the war, actually since 1921 when the White Castle started, and they're still in business. And our real goal is to be considered the in and out of the Midwest, where it's more of a local brand. We want to be very dominant in the market. We expect to grow to about 20 stores in this market before we'd even think about moving outside of probably the second ring suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Well, and it's all company owned. There's no franchise. We don't expect ever to be a franchise.
Well, the burger, fries, and either malts or shakes are a fan favorite here at the Brimacombe household. So thanks for offering those up.
Yeah, and we thank you for keeping us still open. We need all that support.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best. All right, let's go back in time, pre-March of 2020. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities market, and the vast majority of the country was experiencing record unemployment across all demographics, historically low interest rates, and a booming economy. From your perspective, how good were things?
Things were the best that I've ever seen in my working life. And I never had a job with anybody. I never really pulled a paycheck. So, it's been very important to me to be participating in a strong, vibrant economy. And this is the strongest. I mean, it was fairly good, in the early, the late 60s into the 70s. That was pretty good. But this was the best. The optimism was the best. The banking was the best, even after the 2008 meltdown for the lenders. The administration lifted a lot of the rules, which made the community banks, very viable as a lender, which provided an awful lot of capital for growth. So it was absolutely fabulous.
Okay, so then we fast forward to today. Instead of prosperity, unfortunately, in your world, we're talking about survival. How do you view the hospitality industry in Minneapolis and the rest of the Twin Cities? And is survival the key word?
Yeah, I mean, I think survival and creativity go hand in hand. There are a lot of industries that are doing the best that they've ever done. The food source industries are doing fabulous. Shipping is doing fabulous. A lot of stuff that from manufacturing that's going to the big box stores, they're out of stock. They're late in getting deliveries. Some deliveries are not even available. So that part of the economy is not only good, but it's better than it's ever been, even pre-COVID. The hospitality industry is probably getting hit the worst. For whatever reason that industry is being picked on, sometimes it doesn't even seem very fair. The idea now of survival becomes more capital and strategy than it is anything else. We were shut down for the first shutdown that we had for, I don't know, it was like 8 weeks or 6 weeks. And we were prepared for that. I mean, everybody still had money in the bank. PPP money came, which was a godsend for a lot of hospitality businesses. And then we opened up at 25% or 50%. And that was enough to just maintain your head above water, maybe just your nose above water at that point. And now, most businesses that are in hospitality are punished by not having enough capital, not having enough traffic to support them, whether they're doing any kind of modification of what their offerings are. And the idea of trying to survive becomes significant in how you can continue to operate your business at 10% and at the same time give a fair value to your customer. And for us at Myburger, we kind of covered that. I mean, having platforms which you can order from or pick up for at the store, that's pretty simple. Plus, the product is not complicated. At the inn and at other hotels and other city and restaurants, it's tough. I mean, you don't have a menu that travels very well. I mean, it's not pizza and it's not burgers. A lot of us have gone to a sandwich board where you can order sandwiches that we've never traditionally had on the menu before, and having a variety of different special dinners or prep dinners or warm-up dinners where you can take those home. But that's not enough. I mean, it'll never be enough. When you think of a restaurant that's got 300 seats that has got to turn at least on an average night 225 seats, they're not doing 225 for pickup or takeout. That's hard. That's really hard. So we're fortunate, and some of the other places around town are fortunate, being able to have the hotel where you can have some people stay there. And now there's been a real aggressive trend to having this really, I call it speakeasy dining, where you can rent a hotel room and room service is still available. So you can have, in our case, you can have up to 8 people in a couple of the rooms for essentially private dining. And also, having a hotel has provided an opportunity for a getaway. I mean, if you're stuck with your kids or your in-laws or whatever, and you want to get away, the inn's close by, and we've got a really, good opportunity to be able to satisfy that market need. But the survival still comes down to cash and traffic. And I don't know where, it's hard to get a loan when you don't have any way to pay it back. So either you go into your savings and hope that this thing subsides before you're out of money, or you bring in partners, which dilutes your ownership. But that's a big decision to make.
Yeah. And you've touched on the digital platforms a couple of times. I have a question on that. And then a reminder to our audience to submit your questions into the comments field. And then we will get to those to the extent that we can. So, question from Rob, and this dives back into, again, the digital platforms that we've touched on a couple of times. What role do these digital platforms like Doordash and Uber Eats play in the adjustment to COVID capacity regulations? And what do you see as the longevity of these platforms in the future?
Well, they've been critical. I mean, without them, it would be very difficult for a lot of the restaurants to survive. So they've been very critical. There's been some consolidation in that industry. They've done some improvements on what their ability is to service, the menus, and how you order. Some of the fun stuff is that at My Burger, if you went onto one of the order apps, we had so many options that you can put on your hamburger. I mean, people were getting hamburgers that cost $22. I mean, they were just pushing a button, and everything that we had, they put on it, which was impossible essentially to serve. But, that was kind of interesting. So, our restaurant and others have scaled back their menus so they can accommodate platform ordering. But that's essential. In the future, everything comes around. I mean, it's not going to go away. They were doing very well before COVID. They will probably do better after COVID. But the percentage of what the sales is going to be reduced from what it is now.
Okay. Well, again, thanks to Rob for that question. Put your questions in the comments field. We'll try to get to those. Also hit the subscribe button, and hopefully after today's session, you will also hit the like button. All right, so we've touched on it. Things are tough, kind of both long and short term. What do you see the impact of the government mandate shutdowns on the retail market?
It's burning the forest. I mean, we're going to lose a lot of trees, and will they come back? Eventually they will, but they'll come back to size to what the population market is. I don't know how many restaurants have closed permanently, but just say there's 100 restaurants in the Minneapolis area that have closed permanently. But there's probably more than that. Some of them had closed before COVID even hit, which was really interesting. You think about probably a dozen restaurants, maybe as many as 14 restaurants had closed before COVID. So you could make an argument that we had more restaurants than we needed, and that was just a natural culling of the restaurants. After COVID, the ones that are going to stay in business during COVID and after COVID, there'll be fewer of them. They'll be more professional. They'll be better run. They'll have better offerings. They'll be more sensitive to the market, and they'll survive. But we're not going to have as many restaurants as we did before.
Okay. Another question. This ties back to bouncing off of COVID, but I don't want to get too far away from it. You mentioned that all four of your kids are involved in the business, although I suppose they're not kids, so children and in-laws. From Ujay, what advice do you have for business owners who want to successfully incorporate their children into their businesses?
Well, first of all, they have to want to be in it. I mean, you can't make them be in it. I mean, I told all my kids to get a job. I mean, they wouldn't get a job. I mean, I almost didn't have a choice. But they wanted to be in it. They were enthusiastic about being in it, and they are in it. The second thing is that, even though you'd like to think that it's a business, it's really your dinner table. I mean, you have to be forgiving. Children that are in your business, they take more liberties than other employees, and you have to understand that and be forgiving about it. And at the same time, try to be understanding about what it takes to communicate properly with your children in a business environment. And I don't know if every family's different. Everybody explains things differently. Everybody shares things differently. But you have to maintain those values in your business. You can't do a 180 when you're in business and you're 180 at home. It all runs together. So, I mean, I'm in favor of family businesses. Obviously, I named mine after my grandfather, and I think that it's always been important for the growth and the stability of America. And I also think that people feel in children, the worst thing that can happen to a child is feel that they don't belong someplace. You know, a lot of people are searching to belong. If you're in a good family and you have a family business, there's no question of what your day is like and where you belong and who really loves you and who appreciates you. So that's a really strong thing about family businesses, which I'm a fan of and certainly encourage.
All right, great. Yeah, and we talked about that again. Reminder that folks out there interested in that angle of Larry's background, hit the YouTube channel Club E. Look for the video on Larry and Caryl. We talk about it a lot on that particular session. Okay, jumping back to downtown, so we're bouncing around a little bit, but back to downtown. Do you think that the employment levels downtown are ever going to reach that of late 2019, early 2020?
Oh, sure. But I mean, the thing is, what date do you pick? Is it 2045? I mean, it's going to come back. So you got to remember that, you know, we had a real change in the way people were working after 9/11. You know, we had the airport shut down. There was no travel. You know, people started doing video calls. There's a lot of phone calls for those that weren't hooked up to video about doing business, and people thought that was going to be the new thing. That there's going to be a lot less travel, and there was going to be a lot more phone conversation than there was face-to-face conversation. That didn't last very long. So the airlines consolidated. You know, they weren't flying as many flights. Corporations went to open floor plans in the office. I mean, they really just blossomed again. And the reason that it blossomed is that, you know, human beings are very social people. We're social animals. I mean, we're not going to survive very long looking from screen to screen. It ain't going to happen. And the only way that that works is in a work environment or in a school environment. Those are the two strongest places where people get together. And we're going to go back to that. And I think, you know, more importantly, this is just my opinion, you know, when the women get tired of not being in a social environment, then that environment will come back strong. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen.
All right, so come back, just don't know when.
You don't know when? Well, a lot of Minneapolis, you know, they've talked about moving to the suburbs, you know, moving their businesses there and leaving downtown. The value of being downtown, that I've lived downtown now for 11 years, is that, you know, there were so many daily offerings. I mean, your day was much different downtown than it was in the suburb. That's a really good thing. It's a really nice thing. You know, there's no reason to give up on that experience in
this is going to drive whether or not you're able to have a vibrant downtown where people are coming back again.
All right, so you touched on it. You're a resident of downtown. What kind of vibrancy do you think will come back, and any sense for a timeline? I know it's tough to pick, and I'm not asking, say, a specific date, but how do you see that vibrancy coming back to downtown?
Well, I think a couple of things have to happen. You know, one of them is that we're going to have to really step up to the fact that we need security. We need a police force. We need something like that that's going to be able to make people feel safe being downtown and walking downtown. That's got to be addressed. I mean, that's different than any of the things that have been going on with the treatment of our citizens with the police force. This is just like the DID, which is downtown Minneapolis. You know, the business owners or the building owners pay. I think the budget now is probably close to $7.5 million annually as part of the taxes that we pay to keep downtown Minneapolis clean. You know, with the ambassadors, with the guys that are spraying the sidewalks, showing visitors where to go. That's funded by downtown, by the business people downtown. We need to do the same thing. In my opinion, we need to do the same thing for safety. If the outlying areas are having a problem or a different sector of the city is having a problem, that's different than downtown. Downtown can't be painted with the same brush. And if we have to finance it, we have to finance it. If we have to have a separate security force that reports to the police department, then that's what we have to do. And the reality is, it's not a lot of money. You know, when I talked to Mayor Fry, I said, what does it cost? How many officers do we need, and what does it cost? And he said it probably costs $100,000 an officer and you need 12. I said, so for a $2 million essentially tax or fee on all of the buildings downtown, we can have a secure downtown. It seems like a very small price to pay. So that's got to happen to bring the vibrancy back. And when that happens, then retail will start to come back, office will start to come back. And we'll have a new generation of downtown tenants, and we'll also have a new generation of restaurants downtown, which is a great opportunity for upstart entrepreneurs. I mean, the entry level of restaurants is great. And it's been really good for people that are, that are new to the city, or even new to the country. They've had food trucks, which were very successful, where families working, they've gone to brick and mortar stores. Online stuff is also, gone to offices where they've needed more space, etc. So it will happen. I mean, I'm thinking that the first group of survivors is probably going to have to tough it out for 2 years, but they should do okay. And then after that, I think we'll start to see some pretty good growth.
Okay. Along those lines, and again, reminder to submit your questions at comment field. Question from longtime listener Thomas. Thanks for your support, Thomas. And this ties in a couple of different things. It ties in security, ties in the lockdowns, like Larry said, changing in job patterns, business travel. What do you think all of that means for the downtown property prices and rents? And does that then make other areas, whether it be Southdale or others, more important?
I don't know if there's a real simple answer to that. There's certainly an opinion answer to that. The value of buildings is based upon the rent. And if you have a building that was just say making, having income of $10,000 a year, and the value of the building was based upon a 10% cap rate or $1 million, and then that building goes to half of the income, the building is worth half. And once the building is worth half, and if you don't own it outright or you have a mortgage, you're out of compliance with your loan. And now that becomes a problem. So if you're a building owner, you need to get the rents that you were getting in order to maintain the security against your mortgage of the property. The other thing I think that's important there is that there's a fixed cost downtown to be downtown. I mean, your taxes and your operating expenses are pretty fixed. I mean, the city is not backing off on the taxes, and the utility companies are not backing off on the cost of utilities. So if the rents come down, they'll come down, a small margin, but I don't think they're going to come down a lot. The suburbs, on the other hand, if you're going to migrate to the suburbs and their demand goes up, their prices are going to go up. If you took all of Minneapolis and moved it to Southdale, or you moved it to Ridgedale, those prices are going to go up because the demand is going to be higher. So that's the simple formula. I also think that with real estate prices, the goodness of owning real estate in downtown Minneapolis has changed. We've had a lot of Chicago investors, California investors. You go back to the 80s when G. Donald Love, built 3 buildings, City Center being one of them. We've always had people from outside the city that have viewed this as being a real gem to invest in. The disturbances that we had over the summer, that's changed that outside perception. So that's going to have a damper on, what the values of the buildings are. But it's going to turn around. I mean, this is not forever. And this has happened before, and it will right itself. It's just a matter of, again, what's that outside date. And I think from an entrepreneurship perspective, this is the time where you really got to be courageous. Either you're going to be courageous and step into your city and say, what is my hold cost for 2 years? Buy it right. Be one of the pioneers in the regeneration of the economy after COVID. And that's why this is a really great time for entrepreneurs, no matter what age you are. You got to be courageous.
I agree. So you mentioned that you've in the past spoken with Mayor Fry of Minneapolis. Let's pretend that I was able to make you mayor of Minneapolis what would be part of your solution to make things better given the current situation? You touched on them a little bit, but talk a little bit more. If you were in charge, what would Larry do?
Well, if I was in charge, I'd be a businessman that was in charge, not a politician. So I take a look at what can you do to make it to make sure that you've got enough income coming in, you're providing enough income for all of the citizens, and you're providing a fabric in which they can operate comfortably. If we've got an economy that's severely damaged in downtown Minneapolis, the simplest thing I would do is have free parking. I mean, just stop taking and enforcing meter parking. At least have people come downtown. I think that'd be, that would be incrementally as time goes on a real benefit and a real incentive. The other thing that I would do, with security is to really step up and find out, how do we make downtown stronger? I mean, the city did it when we had these disturbances in the summer. I mean, they had horses and bikes and cars. They were able to do it. There's clearly a way that you can have enough security presence where people feel comfortable about getting there. And I think the other thing that I would do is I would go to every retail owner, myself as a mayor, and convince them to stay there. I would actually make it, their mission along with my mission to make sure that we didn't let this city go because we were cowards. If I'm going to stand up, then they should stand up and be able to bring our economy back just by guts alone, and also by the promise that it will get better and we're going to have to invest. I mean, in my lifetime, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in the 40s. I mean, what have I really done that's been courageous? I mean, yes, I was in the service for a while. Yes, I went to school. Yes, I worked really hard. But, it wasn't courageous. I mean, sometimes I think that things like this that happen really give us an opportunity to see who the courageous ones are, who are the ones that are going to be the strong leaders, and which ones do you want to follow. And as a mayor, you need to set that example and that pace.
I love it. I love it. I hope somebody out there in the mayor's office is listening today. And if so, you just got a few great ideas. Couldn't agree with you more on parking. Couldn't agree with you more on the security. And it's not just downtown. And then the other issue would be, again, just trying to get everybody to get enthusiastic about supporting what's going on. So I'm with you. All right. Next thing is somebody was able to make you governor of the state. So at a state level, what ideas do you have to make the current situation and environment that we find ourselves in better?
Minnesota, like a lot of other states, is bifurcated in its citizenry. I mean, if you take a look at the map, we've got a much different type of a population outside of Hennepin County and outside of Duluth. You look at a map, they do this blue and red thing. I mean, there's a lot of red in this state, but where the blue is where all the people are. Doesn't mean that the mayors can't be responsible for the people that are outside of the main counties. And as a governor, I think it's hard to bifurcate what your plan is, but that has to be done. And you go up in any part north of St. Cloud in Minnesota, it's much different. I mean, they talk about the Iron Rangers. I don't know how many people have spent any time on the Iron Range, but that's a different state up there. I mean, these are hardy, encouraging, disciplined people. A lot of it came from the fact that there was, so many families that were involved in mining, and a lot of them are strong outdoors people, which is significantly different than what's happening in the city. So if this pandemic is affecting the northern part of the state differently than the core of the state, you've got to treat those things differently. And I think even today, I mean, there's 150 restaurants that are going to open up to defy the governor's orders. If you look at the map of where they are, they're all north. I mean, they're just doing it on their own. Should they do it and other people shouldn't? I think that, there's probably an argument to be made that if you've got a state as diverse as ours, both geographically and with the weather, that, there's probably some things that can change. And as the governor, I think it's his responsibility to do that. You can't hurt everybody because some people are in a bad situation. You've got to be able to have enough opportunity to bifurcate what your responsibilities are geographically.
And maybe you don't want to tread there, but I have to ask the question. You got, no in-person dining in the restaurants. You got gyms shut down, yet there's no factual data, at least that I've seen, that trace more outbreaks to those locations. As a owner of restaurants, how do you feel about, speaking of a bifurcated response, the response that the governor currently has? And again, you don't have to tread there if you don't want.
The governor, he's walking a populist line. I mean, his boots have never been on the ground. I don't know if he was a dishwasher. I don't know what his real background is. I know that he did spend enough time in the reserves. He was a longtime member of the Army Reserves. I also know that he's been a teacher and an excellent teacher. But those are two different things than owning a business. I wish I could remember who said this, who was a politician that got out of politics and went into business and said, I wish it was the other way around. I wish I was in business first and in politics later. So there's a real learning curve difference. And I think with, the orders that he's going to come with now, which is going to extend everything, is going to crush stuff. I mean, I heard, and I don't know where I heard this from, so let's just say it's hearsay, that the state has a surplus of money, which was unexpected. And all of the hospital beds, I don't know if they're completely full or not, but if we've got a surplus of money, instead of coming up with this, $216 million package to give people relief, why don't we make sure that we convert something to more hospitals or do something to be able to take care of what the result of the pandemic is and use that money for that. And those of us that are courageous enough to want to go to work, they'll expose ourselves to this virus, that we're going to do it just to provide a really strong underpinning for the city and for the economy. But that's clearly my opinion.
Yep. Well, I'm with you on that. Hey, let's go back to where we started and talk a little bit about the family. You're a big family person. What are you looking for in terms of family growth?
In the entrepreneurial world, growth comes absolutely parallel where the availability of capital is. Today, if you take a look at where institutions are willing to lend, they've lent a lot of money in downtown Minneapolis for the apartments. A lot of them are empty now. I mean, that's going to be an issue. That investment will pay off, but there's some very large property owners in other states that will hold those properties against their portfolio. But aggressively, we're doing development in the suburbs. We've got 2 developments going in Edina, which is really the peach of the suburbs. And I'm not offending anyone that's not in Edina, but from a banking perspective, if you say Edina, they go, oh yeah. Or if you say Minnetonka, they go, oh yeah. Those are the 2 areas that are really recognized for outside investors. So there's money in those areas to do the kind of development that we're doing. So that's where we see some growth. The second area would be just opening up more My Burger stores. We're hopeful that we'll get another 2 fairly soon to open up. There's not a lot of capital for that. In fact, there's no capital for that. But we'll be able to do that on our own, and it'll be a slow growth, but we see some growth there. And the other thing that for our family, which I think is important for growth, is that we just have to spend enough time understanding the total overall mission and who's responsible for what part of that mission. You can't it's not like you're on a trampoline working like hell and running into people. I mean, you've got to be very specific about how we're going to be able to actualize what this growth plan is. And probably finally, your wife's got to buy in committing capital. Pre-COVID, people said, why are you still working at your age? I said, because I like to. Said, do you have to? And I said, no. But now I'm thinking, you know what? I have to. And I want to. And now I've got to use my own capital in a lot of situations.
So again, the theme family runs through a lot of our conversation today, and that's been part of what has always been important to me and has resonated with how you've run your life. And I'm again happy to have you both as a friend and a business contact. But talk a little bit about the effect of the current environment, the lockdowns. And that impact on both your family as well as your marriage.
Well, let's start with my marriage. I made a promise to my wife, 50 years ago when we were married, that she would always have enough money in her checkbook to handle all of the daily needs. Now that's a promise I've never broken. I don't expect to break that promise, no matter what. That commitment to that relationship, not only because I think that making a promise, whether you say till death we part or the money will never run out, those are two extremely important promises that I'm happy that I've made those commitments with Caryl, clearly. The other thing is that sets a pretty good example for your children. All of my children are passionate. They're all smart. They're all entrepreneurial. They're all really fun to be with. As when they're all together as a group, I'm not there. But individually, when we're with our children, it's wonderful. So are we privileged, or are we getting a return on the way we raise them? I don't know, but we are really grateful that the children are in our life every day, and that they support each other with their marriages and their children, and they support us, we support them. It just continues to be a rolling conversation about who needs what when. My mother, who's been gone for quite a while, she said, when it's a family member that needs something, you never ask how much or what for, you just answer when. And, that's a pretty good principle for our family. If you need something, you need help someplace, the answer is yes. And that keeps us close. And, it keeps us, not only very loving, but also at the same time, we've got pretty clear goals that we all believe in. And my wife, she, you've talked to her enough. She's certainly an independent thinker, but, we agreed a long time ago that what we really wanted in life was a great marriage and a great family. And I think we have that, and I think we earned that because we made that a priority and worked on it.
So it sounds like you've had a lot of people that were very influential in your life. You've referenced grandfather, your mother. I'm sure there are many others. Looking back over your career, was there a piece of advice or an important lesson that you learned that you've kept with yourself?
I like movies. I think that there are really great sound bites in movies, and I think that you can, the good movies, you can pick out a couple of sound bites, and in some movies there's only one sound bite. And there's a movie called The Tall Man with Clark Gable, and it was not a very good movie until like the last 3 minutes. And in the last 3 minutes, the bad guy was talking about Clark Gable, who was the good guy, and this is the quote that he said: "There goes the only man I ever respected. He is what every boy thinks he's going to be when he grows up and wishes he had been when he's an old man." And that always stuck with me because, you know what? I want to be that person. I want to be the one that when you become an old man, that you actually did become the person that you thought you wanted to be when you were young. So that's one of the influences that I think has been, repetitive in my mind more often than I can count.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Gives me something to strive for as well, and I'm sure a lot of other folks out there in our audience. Okay, for a kind of summary of our talk here today, and again, Larry, thanks for joining us. Their website is the Abdo, ABDO, markethouse.com. If you were to kind of give our audience one takeaway here to sum up our talk, whether we dove into the topic or maybe it's something we haven't touched on, but what would be the one key takeaway you'd want our listeners to take with them?
This is the time to be courageous. This is not the time to be a coward. You know, there are very few times in your life when you have an opportunity to just say, I'm going to do this. This is hard. I'm going to survive this. And that not only do you set an example for other people, but it encourages them, and it re-encourages you to take and put in the necessary effort it is to make sure your marriage is good, your family's good, and everything you possibly can to make your business survive. You've got to be courageous. You've got to be creative. And you can't back down. You can't give up.
All right, perfect words to leave everybody with. Thank you for joining us today, Larry, and look forward to future conversations.
Thank you. It's always flattered to be invited.